Welcome to flight training. I'm your instructor, Captain Molina, but you can just call me Jess.
Hello, everybody. Brandon Jones here. I have Daniel Bloodworth, and it turns out Daniel Bloodworth knows a pilot. A real deal, honest to goodness, not virtual, because we all feel like pilots lately. In the last couple of days, if you have been playing Microsoft Flight Simulator, you might feel a little bit like you're like, I could do this. This is no problem. Here to tell us how very wrong we are.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
This is Daniel Geaslen. We've known each other for about 20 years. You've been flying for almost that long since we've met.
Yeah, I started in about 2003.
And you even have the flight helmet for your audio today. It's very
yeah. Well, these are just standard A10s from just a gaming brand, so they're pretty basic.
It's very appropriate. Blood and I are just sitting in our rooms in our houses where you are on the tarmac. You are ready to go. With your impressions.
that's what this is, right?
Yeah. Well, I do want to start with something because I want to get your impressions right away because I've a lot of questions for you and want to bounce some ideas off you. But
okay,
I just first of all think it's fascinating that Microsoft Flight Simulator is like a huge deal right now. I love that because one of the little tooltips that pops up when you're loading screens says the first game came out in 1982.
Yeah.
And Flight Sim was always something that I knew existed. I had played the earlier games. I've never been a big PC guy growing up. I was a Mac family, and so it was not a franchise I really dived into. And it was not something I could have conceived of if you had asked me a couple years ago if this would be like, no, this is going to be one of the jewels of Game Pass at the launch of the Xbox Series X. This was going to be something that everybody was going to be, freaking out about at launch weekend. And this is something you personally, meaning me, was going to just absolutely love and just have a blast playing. And kind of I've seen the sentiment of some people online kind of in the vein of Animal Crossing of just like, oh, I needed this. Like I just need to fly over the Alps right now. Like I don't know what it is.
It's very therapeutic.
So for you, is this just kind of like Flight Simulator? It's every this is an event every time this comes out, or is there something a little special about this particular version of the game?
In my opinion, this is very special. So, for some background, my first exposure to flight simulators was actually in '91. I think it was version 3, Microsoft Flight Simulator 3. So I've been playing with simulators for a long time, and this one is very definitely unique. I think the thing that really sets it apart, honestly, is the graphics. There are other simulators that do more with some of the things that are going on in the aviation environment. But one of the things that Microsoft just really hit out of the park this time was just how gorgeous it is. And you get in the plane. I jump in the one of the planes in the flight simulator, go up to altitude, and I'm flying along, and I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what it looks like.
And that's kind of the thing because I've been obsessed with Google Earth VR. And so a lot of these maps, I'm like, I have seen this. I have very much in detail. It's just there's no cars. You can kind of hear birds chirping, but there's just not, you don't feel like you're there. And so I think that's like, for anyone that's like, this just looks like Google Earth. What's the big deal? It's like once you feel these planes and get in these things, it's a whole different deal.
Yeah, it's actually, for me, that's been what's sort of nuts is, I've been just going around like, I feel like just about any building that I could think of, any place I used to live or used to work or whatever, I fly by and like that's it.
There it is.
It all looks right. It all looks 3D and the only real exception to that I've had so far, and it's a disappointing one, is the Skyway Bridge back home in Tampa Bay, because it's this huge bridge with these beautiful like triangular spans, and it's probably a rights thing because I saw they're selling like a London pack for like $8 or something like that.
Oh, we can get into that. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah,
but the bridge is just like a road on the water with no elevation.
Yeah. Well, the same thing with my local airport, and they're looking at simulating the entire planet. They're going to have to pick and choose. So, like my local airport, they have buildings where buildings should be, but they are not what the buildings would look like, you know. And in some places you get up close and it's like, well, this is actually an apartment building, or this is a store. What's it doing on the airport? But they're, generally speaking, buildings are where they should be. And the major,
appropriately.
Yeah, and generally shaped appropriately. But we get into the major landmarks, and they are there, and you can go look at them, you can go fly under them, or whatever. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I didn't know that I'm just learning now about Flight Simulator, as somebody who just was not involved with the franchise, I thought this was like FIFA. I thought we got a Flight Simulator 07, 08, 09, you know, like, and so I've heard a lot of people saying that like this is like destiny. This is an investment that they're going to make for a long period of time. So potentially, just like, you know, Google Earth, like I got no email, and yet I logged into Google Earth and noticed like, whoa, it's a lot closer to what Los Angeles is now. Like if there's a new hotel that was put in or some building that was torn down, it's gone. It's actually like this game is evolving, and so they've talked about that. But these packs, what's going on here?
Well, I've seen airport packs that are $20 or $15. Actually, a lot of varied prices in like the airport packs. I think 13 may have been one of the lower ones I saw, and then certain planes that are $30, and then there's this London Landmarks pack that I saw that's $8. I was just poking in, just like, marketplace, what is this?
Yeah, and my impression is that's very normal for the flight sim environment. For example, its major competitor currently would be X-Plane, and X-Plane has a whole website dedicated to aircraft, almost all of them third party, that you can purchase for all sorts of prices up to, you know, $50 or $60 or more, just for the aircraft model. And so like having map packs and stuff, I mean, go look at the Microsoft Flight Simulator X store, which that's a game that came out or a flight sim that came out in 2006, and their store is just full of map packs and aircraft that you can download. So this is not unexpected at all.
That's a slippery slope. I don't know why I don't know why I would buy a pack. You know, it's like, I'm buying all of this or none of it. What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So you are an actual pilot, sir. You are getting up in the air, you know, with the birds, and you get this game that is simulating a thing that you actually do. What do you do when you crack it open? Do you have any goals or dreams or wishes? Is there anything you can do in this game you can't do in real life?
I do crazy stuff. I get in there. There are people out there who really, really enjoy getting into a flight simulator, and they're like, okay, I'm going to make this as real as possible, and they try to simulate air traffic control, and they try to simulate doing all the checklists. I'm like, click, do the auto checklist, throttle forward, get me out of here, and I'm picking the smallest little bush plane I can, and I go try to look at something cool, and that's what I do. I have like taken some of the faster, like larger aircraft up to altitude, which is a lot more like my normal job currently. And it's like, okay, well, I do this every day. You know, this is my job. Why would I want to do this now? But you can, and that's one of the cool things about it is you can do that.
How about you, Blood? Any notable flights? Any notable journeys? Anything you've yet to do that you're looking forward to?
Well, I mean, it's one of those kind of games where I feel like I've actually put a lot of hours into it in just a couple of days since we got the codes. And I feel like I've actually done next to nothing. You know, like I haven't gone through any kind of training or anything. I've just been spending most of my time in free flight. And like I said, there's just this weird thing, and Google Earth's a good example as well, but there's this weird thing. I'm more obsessed with going around and looking at stuff that I recognize, that I know, you know, like spend most of my time around it, like LA and Florida, you know, looking at the islands where I grew up and all this stuff. And you know, and then but I can go anywhere. But for some reason, my brain is just gravitating to stuff that I recognize first. But then the other thing that I did last night, because as Geaslen mentioned with bush planes, you know, he used to fly bush planes in different parts of the world. They do have these challenges that you can do, and that's really set up very differently. And I kind of appreciate that because rather than having nav points and like aircraft traffic control telling you all this stuff, they just give you like this list of instructions. And it's pretty cool because it's like, okay, go on this heading for, you know, approximately 15 minutes or so, and you'll come up to this lake and then turn east, and then you're going to pass this other lake, and then you're going to come to this town, and there's going to be a runway there, and that's your first stop. I'm like, okay. And at first I didn't get what was going on, so I just got up in the air, and then I was starting to like look at the list, and I'm like, oh, I should have read this before I took off. Where am I in regards to these instructions?
Yeah, totally.
And restarting the stuff takes a while. You know, anytime I would crash or be like in the middle of a flight, like, okay, I don't necessarily need to fly to, you know, San Diego. I'm curious, like, to boot up the next flight. Like, load times, you know, getting in the air takes a little bit of time. Load times take a little bit of time.
Oh yeah, I went up the Malibu coast and all that too.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely was like, okay, I'm, you know, going all over California. Yeah, some criticisms that I would have, like we were talking about the visuals earlier, and there were definitely some stuff, you know, that I would notice was missing. Vegas is a little sad because it's like it's weird, like flying by some gigantic sign and it's off like at night, and you're like, okay, this would be extremely bright. It's like a Vegas where like everybody. It's like Vegas a couple months ago actually. Time of day is a huge deal. I always like to take off or land either at sunset or, you know, sunrise, and it's nice to see that change in perspective. The weather effects are really, really great. It's fun to play with that, really fun to pause and like maneuver that stuff. So is that, like you were saying, you like to challenge yourself? Is that another thing that's different from real flying where you're like, I like to, you know, you would always hope, I imagine as a pilot, that you would want to fly in the fairest weather you possibly could. Whereas in this, are you like, turn on the rain, let's do it?
Yeah, I have not like intentionally made really bad weather for me to fly through. Again, that's like the, you know, the not fun parts of the job that, you know, it's like, well, I can do that in my training simulator. I can do that in, you know, at work. I'll stick with the nice weather. And I might, like, I have totally turned on, like, you know, clouds and set it to sunset so I can get just like the, you know, the golden hour kind of pictures and stuff. And that's really fun. You know, yes, sunset, sunrise is like the best time to fly anyway. And so that's a lot of fun. But then you run into like, okay, now I'm trying to, if you're trying to navigate just by what you see, that's like, okay, now I have to pick out things in the dark so that I can, you know, go land somewhere. If you decide you want to land rather than just shut off or something. I have not tried to add in a bad weather yet. I can totally see that happening. I look forward to seeing how much crossover this is when it comes to actual like practice. I mean, it's not a legal simulator where you can log flight time or anything like that, but it's good practice. And so I look forward to seeing, you know, in the future as they come out with more aircraft, will I be able to use this to kind of keep up, you know, a level of proficiency while I'm actually not flying or something like that. But again, that's one of those things, like, that's kind of like the last thing I do with the flight simulator on my computer. If I'm goofing off at home on my own home computer, I'm going to do something fun.
Let's talk about legal simulators for a second. So you said your own. You were like, oh, it's kind of different from my old simulator. What is that thing? How big is that?
Like a training flight simulator?
Yeah.
There's a couple of different legal definitions here that you have to get through. Okay, flight training device is like a fixed thing. It's going to be very similar to what you've got. It might look like it's being run off of like a PC, a couple of screens, and then it's going to have physical controls very much like a flight deck. And then there's going to be the full flight simulator, and that's literally a box, like a gigantic box up on hydraulics that you walk. There's a bridge you walk into, and they lift the bridge up out of the way, and you sit down and you strap in because that thing's going to move, and it's got the entire flight deck laid out around you, and it's got a full like 180 degree visual screens outside of actual windows. And I mean, it looks exactly like a flight deck, and you'll have an instructor in the back who's running the entire scenario, and you're running through, in that case, you're running through with your fellow pilot as a two crew, you know, doing all the checklists and everything. And those are, again, like I said, those are FAA approved, specifically legal to log flight time. Microsoft Flight Simulator is not that, but it's got the groundwork, it's got the bones. They could end up doing something like that, and I really hope they do.
Well, I mean, I'm a massive open world fan, just open world games in general. I love exploring giant maps, and so I think that's like one of the main things that draws me to this. Is it's just like it's so exciting and freeing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things it's fascinating about looking at Google Earth or one of the big differences, you really get a sense of travel now. You know that like it takes a long time. Even like I tried to do Frankfurt to flying into UK. It's also like airport simulator. I'm learning a lot of like names of airports that I usually don't know.
Yeah.
and it's just like, wait, this is gonna take all night. This is ridiculous. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like, when am I past Germany? And it's like, dude, this is just Germany for hours, dude. You know, it's like, and so it's. Do you think that as a pilot, do you think that's something that people who don't fly a lot really don't appreciate? It's like how humongous this world is. I remember like GTA 5 came out. They're like, look, they built LA. It's like an eighth of it. Like, this is not even close to like how massive this city is. Like, the world's a big place. Do you appreciate that as a pilot?
Yes, I actually do. I've actually said before that one of the things that most flying or games that incorporate flying of some sort just simply don't capture is the speed at which you're moving, but also the size, like just the scope of how far you're going. So like, you know, in my job right now, I'll cross the U.S. in about 5.5 hours, you know, taking off out of New York, flying to Southern California or something. But that's 5.5 hours sitting in a plane. When you go to do that in the simulator, it's going to take every bit of that time because it's 1-to-1. And there's no option that I know of at this point to just like click, oh, I'm going to speed everything up and like kind of zoom my way across the country. If you want to do a transoceanic, take off from New York, fly to London, get your plane to altitude, put on the autopilot, go take a nap, because that's what you're going to be doing for the next 5 hours is just staring at your screen while it does its thing. Yeah. And so, I think that's something that will potentially really bring home like just the size for a lot of people. But for people who are in this flight sim community already, who've been doing this for a long time, for real pilots, this is going to be like, oh yeah, of course.
The interiors of some of these cockpits are a lot fancier than I just still have like airplane in my head from however many years back. But like there was like one HUD, I jumped into the plane immediately and was like, whoa, I got like 8 laptops in front of me. This is crazy. Just like big color headings, lots of really tiny text readings and stuff. And it's neat because it's, like some of that stuff I can read and some of that stuff I'm like, man, even if I knew what that said, I can't, that text is just crazy, crazy small.
Yes.
But it's so cool that it's that detailed.
Yes,
just another thing I don't think people realize that don't fly a lot.
Yeah, I've actually been wondering for people who aren't pilots how it feels to jump into something like that and to look at the flight deck and be like, what am I even seeing here? Or like when you start to, trying to control it, like, or have you done like the training scenarios to kind of feel that out? Because like as a pilot, for me, I jump in and it's like, okay, I know what this does, I know what this does. I can look at the flight deck, see the labels, and be like, okay, I need to move these switches at this point, and I need to do these things at this point. But for non-pilots, I feel like, is that overwhelming? Does that kind of, I don't know. There's not a training, regime in the simulator that I'm aware of for the 747, but you can jump in and try.
Well, for me, that was kind of like one of those revelation kind of moments when, I started moving the mouse around the cockpit and realized like, oh, all this stuff actually works. So like, of course it does, but and it was like, okay, moving this dial, like I can like move the exact, frequency on the radio. I can turn lights on and off. I found for the Bush plane one,
the
found
Carbon
the thing.
Cub?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the mission itself.
Oh, okay.
But the like just finding the button for like the auto leveling and that kind of thing. Just kind of, all right, I'm at how high I want to be and just let's just go in a straight line right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no basic information on how to. Well, it would be difficult to find the information on like how to run the autopilot, which I think is what you're talking about there. And again, that's something like people who are familiar, it'd be pretty easy. It took me a little bit to find it, but once I did, it was like, oh, okay, I know how to run this thing. But for someone else who's no experience, I wonder how hard that would be and how frustrating that might be to figure that all out.
I did find it interesting that there are like levers where you can control the air conditioning and stuff too.
Nice.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any realistic difference, but I can move the temperature.
Yep. Now, one thing I did notice is some of the avionics. For example, when you jump into some of the business jets, they have the navigation computer called the FMS. Those don't, as far as I can tell, they don't have the full functionality of an FMS that would be in an actual aircraft. But they've got a lot of the stuff there. The other thing I found that was it was a little frustrating was, in a couple of the aircraft, when you start doing the knobs on the G1000, for example, there's a few functions that the G1000 in a real airplane would have that is not available in the simulation. But most everything is there. And so if it's not super user friendly, but it's very on par with like the simulators that are out there currently. Like, yeah, you're going to have to put your mouse in the right spot to turn this knob, and you can also use your mouse wheel to scroll it to turn it, but it's not like there's no option to like type it into the computer that I'm aware of at this point.
Blood, one thing that I'm struggling with is and we, you and I have played a lot. The Crew 2 is something obviously that like comes into the conversation for me, because like I played a lot of that, for the same, to get the same desire, as I have been getting out of this game, of just like, I want to fly between these two cities and see what, what that aesthetic is like. My brain is programmed for like your classic unlock stuff, get XP, get money to buy more things. Obviously, you need real money to get like some of the landmarks in London, but it was strange to me to jump into this game and have them be like, go. I'm like, oh, I guess, well, let me do the training stuff first. But they're like, you don't have to. And I'm like, okay, well, I start out with the dinky plane, and then I got to unlock the other ones. They're like, no, man, it's a sim. Like,
it's all there.
It's all there. Just go out and check stuff out. And I'm so used to like learning about whatever weird open world environment they've created and what names of cities and towns they've done. And it took me like an hour going through all the training stuff. I was like, oh, Sedona. Like, I've been here, It's like, I was like, what road did we take? Oh, there it is, And like when they say like, let's do the Sedona Loop, it's not like some weird kooky thing we came up for this game. It's the Sedona Loop. Like you're doing the thing.
And my understanding is most of those training simulations are based on like stuff people do there.
Mm-hmm. So it's fun, obviously authentically, not just seeing the cities and the environments and weather and everything, but like when you see those numbers, like you have exactly this distance between this and this city. It's like for real,
That's real.
This isn't weird game logic. This is actually the way the Earth is built.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things with the free flight, as you're talking about, like not having video gamey goals or whatever, is, once I did like finally approach an airport and go through the process of landing the first time, and then kind of taxiing in, and I was trying to figure out like, okay, what's the thing that tells me that I'm done? What's the end point here?
Yeah.
And it really, there's not.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you park, you can ask to fuel up, and then you can ask to take off again. But there's not like, you did it, you completed the thing.
Yeah.
I was looking for that in the training missions. I finished a training thing, and I was like, "Where's the confetti? I did it." Like, where's my gold medal? Like,
did they not have the like objectives that finished for you?
No, that's one thing actually that I wish the game did have, is some kind of like noting what I've done. It's like if I've just used a plane once, like just put a check mark next to it. Just in case I'm that completionist type person that's like, I want to fly them all. It's just it's very open ended of like here's your menu of stuff you can order, and go nuts.
Interesting. I when I did the training missions that I did have objectives that you could complete, and then they did at the end of the scenario say, "Good job, you've landed the plane, you've taxied the plane."
Like I said, I was in free flight, so that's,
okay, yeah.
If you were to like,
they're not going to do that.
If you were to like look at the training menu, I think there's like 8 of them. If you were to like look at that menu, I could tell visibly, I've done those 5, I haven't done those 3. Some kind of like. But again, that just factors into just this predisposed like progression system that I'm just so used to in games like this.
Yeah. No, for the progression, what you end up with is there is actually an baked-in logbook feature that will track your hours and your landings and stuff. And so that's very real to aviation. It's like, well, I have 25 hours in this aircraft, or I have 53 landings or something like that. And that's very realistic. I mean, I can rattle off my landings and hours in real life within within a couple percent, like that's something and you keep track of. So that's very real to flying for the simulator to track things that way.
So how many hours are you going to log? What are we talking? Triple digits? 4 digits? What are we talking
in
about?
this simulator?
In Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020.
Well, I've already done like 70.
How much of that? Were you at your desk for all of it? Did you get up and microwave something for half an hour while you were flying over?
Can we give the context for how you put that much time in?
Yeah, I was part of the beta and alpha testing, so I got to make use of it for quite a while prior to this. So I'm not sure how much time I'm actually going to end up putting into it, but I bet it's going to stack up faster than I would like to admit.
What about you, Blood? What are your goals? What have you not done yet? in Microsoft.
I mean, I haven't even done training yet, like we were just saying.
It sounds like you don't need training, if you've taken off and landed,
But yeah, I mean the bush flight that I'm doing is in Patagonia, and that they don't make you fly it all at once. You just kind of go from one airstrip to the next. So I did the first leg of that. I would like to eventually, complete that whole journey, which seems like it will probably eventually take quite a few hours because it looks like a good strip of that continent. So.
Yeah, I started doing the one that was in the Balkans, and yeah, there's broken up into very short, 30 to 40 minute segments that you can do reasonably, one or two in a sitting. But yeah, they're designed to last. Like the one in the Balkans is like 9 hours of flight time total. When I first jumped into it, I was like, oh, I'm not finishing this today. The other interesting part with that is those are set flight plans that they have prepared for you to try out. There are third-party software that you can use online to create flight plans that you can then import into Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it will populate. Hey, here's your airplane, or you can select an airplane, populate your flight plan. It's all there, and it'll be in the programmed into the aircraft when you get started, and you can go fly it. And there's your flight plan ready to go. So there's all sorts of options for the community to create very similar challenges where it's like, hey, on this forum, here's this flight plan, download it, upload, import it into your Microsoft your simulator, and go fly this trip I did. And people also will do that. Multiple aircraft at the same time, so you'll be flying around in a group looking at each other like, hey, there's so and so, he's flying in formation with me. Oh, that guy's going fast. Oh, look at him, he can't land at all. So there's lots of options there for that sort of a trip to be done and created and used by multiple people at the same time.
Have you done any of the multiplayer stuff? I didn't get to mess around with that. I'm not sure actually how that works.
Yeah. So if when you set up a free flight, you can tell it that you want live weather and live other pilots and live traffic and that sort of thing. And when you set that up, anybody who is currently flying who's near you is going to show up, and they're going to be part of your multiplayer experience. So my understanding is, as long as everything's set live, it's multiplayer. You are in the multiplayer environment. The downside is I haven't found a way to just send a quick chat to somebody while I'm flying. So if you see someone, you need to be connected with them in advance, either through Discord or something else, in order to be able to communicate with them. That may change in the future, but my understanding is at this point that's not an option. But yeah, you can. I was flying along one time, and then I look over, and there's somebody who's come up, and he's flying in formation with me, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna try to chat to him. So I, pressed escape to try and see if I could toss him a friend request or something. And while I was doing that, my plane pauses. So when I unpaused the menu, he's a half mile ahead of me suddenly, and I'm like, oh, great. So that's one of the unfortunate parts that is currently, and part of it is there's no way that I'm aware of to chat directly with other people live, but you can see them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think logically, I was thinking well, maybe the radio channels, but the radio channel is all just canned text between you and air traffic control. Yeah.
I imagine that wouldn't be so jolly in real life for you to be, flying somewhere and then all of a sudden whoa, somebody just creeps up on your side.
Yeah, no, that's the only people
you wouldn't be waving out of the cockpit like, "Hi, friend, isn't flying grand?" It's like, what?
Yeah, the only time something like that happens is when it's a fighter jet, and if they've come up on your wing, you got problems. Then you need to be talking.
Yeah, when do we get fighter jets in this? When do I get to be Top Gun in Microsoft Flight Simulator?
Yeah, well, my understanding is that they're going to be working hard to support third-party aircraft, and so I suspect you're going to see what aircraft that are available just explode. And I expect you'll see fighter jets. You see, old vintage aircraft coming in. I expect you'll see a lot more aircraft being brought in as time goes on. And given that X-Plane 11, for example, has been out for 10 years. Microsoft Flight Simulator X, which was the last simulator that Microsoft put out, was 2006. They did a thing called Microsoft Flight. We don't talk about that. It's not a simulator. But
so much stuff I got to look up after this.
So I expect that this simulator will last years to come, and there will be a lot of extra third-party content available.
Blood, any final thoughts on just like the actual game itself? This is not something where I'm potentially going to stream this. It'd be fun to do like a little multiplayer thing, but
yeah, I know Huber was wanting to do something with you, right?
Yeah. Huber reached out to me at Slack, like, when are we doing it? I was like, hold on, I gotta sit down with the real deal pilot, Huber. Get in line, man. I got questions to ask.
I feel like you need to test that on a private channel too, because man, you're gonna have to like bump some settings down. I've been playing on medium, and like my computer's a lot older than yours, of course, but it's just like, oh, I am maxing out my CPU even on medium.
Yeah.
And we're in a heat wave right now in California. My PC was making some funny noises last night. I was like, take a nap. I'm gonna go eat some dinner, and we'll play more of this later. But just anything strictly from a game reviewer's perspective that struck you, Blood, about
I mean, from a game reviewer's perspective, I'm mostly impressed by the game reviewers that have managed to review the game.
Yeah, right. Which is why we're not like no plans currently.
This feels absolutely impossible and unapproachable. As I said, like I've put a fair number of hours. I probably put in 6 or 7 hours at least, and I haven't seen hardly anything. I haven't done training. I haven't been but to 3 locations on the entire world.
We were streaming last night, Blood. Somebody in chat was like, have you been playing Flight Simulator? I'm like, oh, I have, yeah. And we got it early, so I put some hours into it. They're like, what's your favorite plane? I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
I couldn't tell you the name of one of those planes. One of them. Like, forget it. As much as I've stared at those loading screens, XSG1, I don't know.
Just answer the Carbon Cub, and everyone will think you're really cool and have great taste.
Okay, all right. Keep that one in the back pocket. Anything? Yeah. Before we wrap up, any like planes that you were like stoked to finally get your hands on? Like, as in the position that you're in, do you get variety in the aircraft that you get to try out? Whether it's strictly for professional capacity or just for your own amusement.
Me personally, I was really, really excited to get my hands on the Carbon Cub, actually.
Nice.
And very seriously, as Blood mentioned, I have a pretty long background in backcountry bush flying, and so I've wanted to try out the Carbon Cub for like years. And so when I saw the first trailers with that one in, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna fly the pants off that thing.
How'd it hold up?
I've not flown a real one, but like, it was awesome. It's a great plane.
Yeah, this is a game that it's kind of nice actually having it on my PC, because it's just something I can always like, okay, I'll just put in a flight or something at the end of the day. I've been doing custom settings, but I do love the option to just have it be whatever time it is now. Yeah. So that's always just kind of fun to keep that realistic, especially if you're potentially going to be flying over where you are currently in the world.
Yeah.
But
I still have to figure out how to turn off some of the tooltips. I think maybe because I'm on baby mode or whatever, but yeah. Flying some of the older pop planes, I keep getting these pop-ups. It's like, you can't see over whatever, and I'm like, I'm in third person mode right now. Right. I know I'm fine.
Yeah. There is an option. At least I had the option when I first downloaded it to turn tooltips on or off. But that is one thing that I noticed was changing the difficulty settings. There's multiple places to do that in different ways. You can change the flight model. You can change the control, like realism. You can change the reliability of the aircraft. Those things are in there, which is really great from a flight simming perspective. But they're harder to find. You have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think I might eventually turn. It was nice to have some of those warnings and to have a lot of that assist stuff turned off, just to learn like what could potentially go wrong. Or I think like everyone who hasn't flown before probably does the same thing when they first start the game up, which is like you move that analog stick and the plane like go, and you're like, oh, like when the crew too, the plane just goes like right when I just say like right, there's like not that much nuance in the the weight of the plane, so that definitely changes things up, but. It has been an absolute pleasure to have your perspective on this. This sounds like a game that you are, is not going away in your life.
No.
And it's curious to see, how this is going to evolve, especially as the, next gen is coming up, how this is going to evolve, like what the version is going to be like that eventually comes to Xbox. And I saw some people online that they're like, when are we modding Goku into this? Come on, that's got to happen at some point. Where's my Superman mod at?
Yeah.
But it's fun. He's kicking off 2020. I didn't know the trailer. Actually, I was really impressed. Really stood out when that was first debuted, because like for the reasons you were saying at the start of this conversation, that like, wow, that game looks beautiful. And so it's really going to be a treat going around and seeing other parts of the world that I don't get to see.
Yep.
thank you, Bloodworth, for setting us up with the real life pilot to get some more info. And feel free to reach out to us or hit us up if you want to do any multiplayer. I'd proud to have you. What's the plane behind you? Just before we wrap? Why this image in particular?
Okay, so this is the plane that I currently fly for my work. It's a Challenger 350. It's a business jet, 9 passengers, 2 crew, and can go about 7 hours. But yeah, that's what I fly.
And this is from a simulator, this photo.
No, this is real life.
I was just going to say, man, that's pretty cool that I didn't know. Microsoft Flight Sim, everybody. Thanks so much.
Before long, you won't even need a co-pilot. Until then, if you want help with the radio or checklists or simply flying the plane, I'll be here.